everybody. Today, I wanted to take us to a beautiful place. We're visiting the maps of Halo, the original Halo. And we're going to be exploring a number of multiplayer maps today. Just wandering around, taking in the sights, appreciating the design and the aesthetics and such. And perhaps if you were a Halo player like I was back in the day, this might be a bit nostalgic for you. Now you'll notice right away that there's some kind of glitch going on here, where my gun is invisible and all the vehicles are invisible as well. So, that's funny. I'm playing on the Master Chief Collection version of Halo. And of course the game's full name is Halo Combat Evolved. So this is the first game in the long-running Halo series. And we're walking around Blood Gulch. And up in the sky we can track the iconic distant opposite side of the Halo ring. This ring world. It's one of my favorite things about Halo is just looking up and tracing the ring all the way around. There's something so magical and fantastical about that to me when I was young. Seeing the big ring world and just thinking you could walk all the way around that thing. And this is a pretty classic map. Blood Gulch. Just this big valley with a base on either side. And it was kind of made famous by Rooster Teeth with their Red vs. Blue Machinima series, which, if you're unfamiliar, Machinima is a genre of animation online. It is basically people taking video games and making little movies in them using the game engine. Using the game for a purpose beyond just playing it. And so, if you watched Red vs. Blue, which I watched some of it, I haven't seen it all, but I came to it kind of late. I had a friend in high school who was a lover of it, and so he sat me down and we watched, I think, the first season together. But if you've watched Red vs. Blue, you've seen a lot of this map. And it's just, it's very nostalgic, but there's something also very compelling about these old graphics. And here's a little teleporter exit. We'll see some more teleporters in some of the other maps that we check out today. So, just for broad summary, I guess, in case you're unfamiliar with Halo, which would be a little surprising, it is one of the largest first-person shooter video games in existence, one of the largest video game franchises ever, I would say. It's up there with, like, Mario, to me, kind of in terms of how iconic it is. Also, I don't know if you can hear that, but it sounds like one of my neighbors just turned on their washing machine. But yeah, Halo CE, Halo Combat Evolved, was created by Bungie. It was developed by Bungie and released in 2001. Bungie was acquired by Microsoft, and so when Halo was released, it was released for the original Xbox exclusively and became a so-called killer app. A very good reason for people to buy the console was to play Halo. And that's the moon basis, by the way. The moon called basis. And, spoiler alert, in the Halo Combat Evolved campaign, this ring that we're walking around on blows up, and a bunch of the wreckage of the ring falls onto bases. And in Halo 2 multiplayer, there's a map called Burial Mound, and it's set in the wreckage of the ring on bases. So you're walking around the moon's surface and there's a bunch of junk. I like these little bits of flora. So Blood Gulch has been remade a lot. It's probably the most iconic Halo map. It was called Coagulation in Halo 2. It was called Valhalla in Halo 3, although, in my opinion, it's such a different map that they're kind of not even comparable. But it is sort of a spiritual successor. It was Hemorrhage in Halo Reach. And it also appears in Halo Wars, the RTS game. I like this plant too. Kind of looks like a baobab tree a little bit. Just a big, thick, barren trunk with a lot of little branches coming off the top. And here we have a little cave system on the side of the map, and seems to be some bioluminescent fungus or lichen or something growing on the walls here. Provides a little lighting to the otherwise dark cave. And now we're just gonna kind of trace along the edge here. There's another cave system up ahead that we'll check out. Find some more of that fungus. But to me, this is very beautiful. It's no doubt simplistic and archaic at this point, but I just find it very soothing and attractive in its simplicity. You know, modern video game maps, they're certainly beautiful in their own way. Much more photorealistic. Oh, I bumped into an overshield. Much more lush maps today, for sure. Modern technology supports a much more detailed depiction of an environment. And, you know, I'm not saying that this graphical style is better, but it has an appeal, you know, just because it's old and a little clunky by comparison. I still think it's very beautiful. Just here in this big valley. So, this was Blood Gulch, and now let's check out Sidewinder. And all of these maps have a little description tag associated with them. little tagline. Blood Gulches is the quick and the dead, and Sidewinder is red blood, white snow. Sidewinder is a map in particular for me that I found so peaceful and beautiful when I was younger. Something about walking around the big barren valley, listening to the wind. And that planet, by the way, that's a big gas giant. It's called Threshold. You travel there in Halo 2 when you play as the Arbiter for the first time. The Arbiter, an elite named Thel Vadam. You travel there with a strike team of Covenant soldiers to hunt down a heretic, which you do successfully, and you take him out and find the Oracle, who is of course a returning character, 343 Guilty Spark. So you can see Sidewinder here. It's just this long, snaking canyon, all frigid and frozen. A couple pine trees scattered around. These little pools of frozen blue ice. It's just so peaceful to me. And one thing I love about Halo, the designs of it, are the skyboxes. I mean, look at the Threshold there. It's just so huge, and the colors are gorgeous. It's just, Halo's always had wonderful skyboxes, in my opinion. Here we have a rocket launcher, the SPNKR, the Spanker, M41 SSR, MAV/AW. Attention, hold like this. In all the Halo games, one of my distinct memories is just staring out of the skyboxes. There were these beautiful art pieces, not photorealistic. Once you got to the skyboxes, here's a fuel rod gun, another classic Halo weapon, sort of the Covenant of the Covenant equivalent, the Covenant equivalent, the Covenant equivalent, the Covenant equivalent, the Covenant equivalent of the rocket launcher. I mean, not that the maps are actually photorealistic, obviously, but they're designed, pretty realistically for the technology capabilities. But then when you go to the skyboxes, they feel a little more painting-like, a little more abstract, slightly impressionistic to me. Almost watercolory, and they're always just so gorgeous. I love looking at the Halo skyboxes, which is maybe a funny thing, I don't know, but I've always found them very beautiful. This map, Sidewinder, by the way, this was remade in Halo 3, I believe. It was called Avalanche. Now we've descended down into the valley. Walking across this ice, we see some reflections there of the surrounding mountains. Or, not even mountains, just the walls of the canyons. lot of graphical tricks used in the old days to simulate reflections and lighting and stuff like that. We didn't have ray tracing back then. And you can walk up this little hill here. Here's a Covenant turret. Shoots a stream of plasma bullet-like projectiles. And these old video game maps, there's something about them, in particular when they're empty. They have kind of a magical feel to them. It gives a similar vibe to me of if you've walked around, say, a mall when there's nobody there. Maybe you're there after hours and it's all cleared out. Or any other store or a municipal building where there's, normally lots of people lined up trying to get work done, or an office building or whatever it might be. Walking through a place that normally has tons of people, but you're there when it's abandoned. It has an energy to it that I really enjoy. This. I don't know. I know liminal might be kind of the popular word for it, but to me that doesn't fit quite right. The emotions that it makes me feel. It's not that I feel like I'm on a threshold or, in a liminal space between two worlds. It's more like you're getting to see it fresh. You're seeing it in a way that other people don't get to see it. You're seeing something unique. And, it's funny because even ugly, bland buildings like an office building or something, walking through the rows of cubicles, when there's nobody there, it just takes on a certain beauty. I can't quite describe it, but it's just something to do with being the only person there in a place that normally has lots of activity. Here we have some Forerunner lights. Just running down the length of that lighting fixture. And this is all kind of Forerunner architecture and design. In the world of Halo, the Forerunners are the advanced alien race that built the ring. I like that little view of the ring up through the hole in the ceiling. The Forerunners built the ring and left a lot of other relics behind. And here's kind of a funny part of the level. There's an overshield and an active camouflage pickup on the ground here. The pyramid is the active camo. And I always thought these balls looked like eyeballs. And then here we have a cube for the overshield. But it's funny because you can see people on the other side here and you can attack them a little bit if you want, as they're trying to get their pickups. But you can't actually reach each other. And here we are on Death Island. Sand, surf, and spent shells is this map's tagline. And we can see the moon bases off there in the distance. basis and threshold are always hanging in the sky somewhere in Halo. Never far from view. I love the way the ring just disappears into the distance like that. And this map is a really, really big one. Maybe the biggest map in this game. Although I'd have to think about that. There might be a bigger one. This one feels huge. And it's kind of based off of the mission from the campaign called the Silent Cartographer, which is an island mission. You land on the island, and it's kind of a cool mission because it's almost open world in a sense, in a very rudimentary sense, but you can go down the path the mission directs you to go down, or you can just turn left at the start and go start exploring the island and just, cut off some pieces of the mission, skip ahead in the objectives. So this map has been modified from that mission. It's not identical to the island from the Silent Cartographer, but it has a lot of similarities and shares a lot of structures, and like this fixture in the campaign, you're trying to get in here to get the map data about the ring. And you walk through this little entrance, and there's all these Covenant aliens blocking the way that you have to fight through. And on this mission, there are teleporters here. This one takes you to a Banshee, which is a flying vehicle. It's got that little icon helpfully placed next to the teleporter. And then this teleporter takes you to a Covenant plasma gun turret. And in the campaign, right here against this wall would be a door that leads you down into the heart of the complex. And of course you go down there and you get locked out. And this is a really fun mission for speed running, if you're into speed running games at all. I'm not really, but there's an achievement in the Master Chief Collection, a sort of challenge that you have to complete the campaign on Legendary, I think, in under a certain amount of time. And I went through and did all of those challenges for all the Halo games because I just found something very fun about that. Anyway, this mission is really fun for speedrunning because there's that door that I was talking about that locks you out. If you drive a Warthog, which is this big truck with a gun turret on the back, if you drive a Warthog in there just right and hurl yourself out of the driver's seat, you can get through the door before it closes and locks, and cut off a huge portion of the mission's time, which is fun. I do enjoy watching speedrunners from time to time. It's not a community I keep up with in particular, but every once in a while I check out some cool speedruns of games that I like. And down there, that structure in the campaign mission, you end up flying in there. It's a big door. You fly a pelican in there to descend into the heart of the ring. So, as you can see, this map is huge. I've explored, I don't know, a fifth of it at this point. There's a And you can imagine back in the day that this map was far too big for most of your gameplay purposes, because Halo supported 4-player split screen. So you could have one television divided 4 ways, and in each block of the TV would be another player's screen. And there was no Xbox Live at that point, so you couldn't play online. So most of your games would just be 2v2 if you had 3 other people to play with. And for you younger folks, you might be interested to hear about what it was like to play multiplayer games before the advent of online gaming. So, as I said, split screen. You probably know about split screen. Not many games come out with it nowadays, but I think enough do that that's probably a well-known thing. And I think this map is so big, let's just take to the sky in a Banshee and check it out from the air. But split screen was how you would play a lot of your multiplayer games. And you could play with more people, but it would require something called a LAN party. LAN parties were very, very popular back in the day. Back in the the 90s, 2000s. And they even survived for a while into the 2010s, I think, just because of their kind of holdover popularity. But a LAN party stands for Local Area Network Party. And what it was you would get your hardware, let's say in this case an Xbox, but you could do it with, computers as well or whatever. You would get your Xbox, you would pack it up, and you would take it over to your friend's house who also had an Xbox. And then maybe you had a 3rd friend with an Xbox, or maybe even a 4th friend with an Xbox. And you would all bring your Xboxes to one person's house. And you would also need to find 4 televisions, 1 television for each Xbox. So this was a high resource endeavor. But once you got all your equipment together in one house, you would set up all your consoles and your televisions, you would link everything together, and then you could play on your local network. And you could all play in one game session together. So you could have 4 Xboxes playing on 4 TVs, and each TV could have 4 players playing 4-player split screen. And that's how you could get 16-player games in Halo Combat Evolved. So, with 16 players, you can see how this map would be fleshed out a bit more. Of course, 16 players was a lot of resources that you had to be able to gather up. And, you'd have to have some parents that were willing to host that many dudes just kicking around in their house. But if you got it all together, it was pretty legendary. And at the very least, even if you couldn't get 16 people and 4 Xboxes and all that stuff, it was pretty common to do LAN parties with, a few fewer people than that. So this is the mission, or pardon me, the map, longest. And its tagline is, "A long walk down a short hall." This map is it was always a bit confusing to me. It's kind of these long, narrow hallways with a couple crossover points. And I would often feel like I was just kind of getting lost, turning a corner and not even really knowing where the other, how I had just gotten to the other hallway. In reality, I think it's a pretty simple layout, but for whatever reason, it just kind of cooked my brain a bit. And just another Forerunner style mission, Forerunner complex. The map design of Halo CE, you can see, is very simple and also very, how do I put this, amateurish, I suppose. Not with a negative connotation, but just naive, maybe, or it's just very early. It's an early multiplayer map design. A map like this has much more in common with a map from GoldenEye than it does with a map like you might find in COD Black Ops 6 or whatever. Maps in these days were kind of it's hard to put into words. They were simple. They didn't have a sort of high sense of like gameplay flow, or the idea of how you would design corridors and sight lines and pathways and all this stuff, and little like bunkers and all the things that you might find in modern map design. Which I don't mean to say that these old maps don't have stuff like that, but it's more like these maps just feel like somebody sat at a desk and, threw a map together from existing assets and didn't give a ton of consideration to how the game would play. And I feel like I'm coming out as though I'm being critical, and I don't mean to be. I'm just trying to put my finger on what it is that makes these old maps a little different. Like for example, Death Island, the map that we were just on, it just has these huge open sight lines, these wide stretches of grass and beach and stuff that are so large compared to the player, and with such open sight lines that you just wouldn't see something like that in a modern day multiplayer map. There's almost an innocence or something to the maps here where they're just kind of passion projects or something. They're thrown together by somebody who's just having a good time making a multiplayer map. I don't know. I know I'm not doing a good job explaining what I mean, but I hope you get a sense of it. It's hard for me to put into words. There's just an age to these old maps. You can feel an earlier era of map design. But that's not to say that these maps are bad. Although some of them I think aren't phenomenal. Some of them are really good. And this is also from a different kind of gaming era. Less competitive, no skill-based matchmaking, no professional scene. Just this sort of idea of you're hanging out with your buddies, shooting each other in Halo. So it's not like the maps needed to be tuned for professional level play or anything like that. This map is Battle Creek. it's kind of a mini version of there's some fragmentation grenades down there. A little drop down into the base. What was I saying? It's kind of a mini version of Blood Gulch. A little bit like that, where there's a base on either end of this little canyon, and there's some kind of caves on the side, and there's some teleporters and such, but it's really, really tiny. If Blood Gulch is designed for 8 to 16 players, this map is designed for like 2 to 8. And even if you have 8 people, I mean, 4v4 on this map, so that's pretty tight quarters. It can get a bit chaotic. And that's something about these old maps as well, is that they could get really chaotic with how many players they supported. If you had a ton of players on a really tiny map, it would be ridiculous. It would just be spawn, die, spawn, die, spawn, get off a quick kill, die. Just explosions going off everywhere. Frags being thrown in a couple seconds before you go down again and have to respawn. It was, could get very chaotic. Which was part of the fun. Another thing about these old maps is they're very game forward, I guess. They're not imitating reality per se. A lot of modern multiplayer maps, it's you're in a mall, or you're in a an office building, or you're running around a train station or something, and there's a sense of reality to the location. These old maps weren't super concerned with making you believe the space was quote-unquote real, right? You can just have something like this where it's a tiny little canyon with 2 random bases just sitting there at opposite sides, and the interiors of the bases are just meaningless ramps and hallways and little empty rooms. This map, by the way, became Beaver Creek in Halo 2. It was remade. And I think that sense of unreality in these old maps is part of what's kind of fun about them, part of the spell they cast on me, part of the magic, is that sense of unreality, that sense of existing in a mystical sort of realm. It's the graphics that contribute to that, because the graphics are not very realistic, and it's the unreality of the design and the architecture and the geography, and it's the colors, and it's the skybox, and it's everything kind of working together to create this. I don't know, just this funny feeling that old video game maps have. Grab this active camo here, should we? Should we hide from whoever's watching? I like the design of the power-ups in this game. I talked before about how being on these old maps, emptied like this, it feels like walking around an empty mall or something. And, I think you can get that feeling from modern maps as well. Walking around a modern multiplayer map probably gives you that sense, because it's a place that's designed to hold people, but it's empty. And oftentimes the other thing with multiplayer maps especially in the modern age, like Call of Duty or whatever, is that they're kind of war-torn. Not all of them, but, sometimes they will have signs of the battle. It'll be, there'll be little fires burning stuff and broken walls and this or that or whatever. And that sense of walking around like a disaster zone, but after the disaster has happened and there's no people around, that's another piece of it, is that there's no bodies, there's no people, there's no anybody. You just have it all to yourself. It's kind of like that, I don't know, imagining yourself like that Twilight Zone episode. You just wake up and you're the last person on Earth. Walking around an old map like this, it sort of simulates that feeling for me a bit. It gives a little bit of that, just a taste of that, I'm on my own now, And, I'm just rambling at this point about how these maps make me feel, but it is a big part of the draw for me. There is, these maps just have kind of a power over me. They have a magic, they have a mystique, a mystery to them. Like there's something to discover. Like there's something hidden. And also that, they're just peaceful. It's the contrast as well, because I've spent so much time on these maps running around, shooting guns and laughing and shouting and such. When you come back and you're just by yourself, you feel that absence of activity. It's like walking out in a football stadium right after the Super Bowl ends or something, and everybody has already filtered out, and you can't hear the cars or the people chattering anymore, and you're just the last person left on the field. I could imagine that having a similar energy. Battle Creek. Battle Creek. Battle Creek. Battle Creek. Battle Creek. Battle Creek. I think with these maps, like this one, where you're just kind of tucked into a canyon as well, there's something about that. The natural boundaries of it. You're in this little tucked away corner, this hidden veil, this little secret place. Anyway, I've probably talked enough about how I think these maps are cool and special. But no promises, I'll probably keep talking about it as we keep looking around more of these maps. Halo, as I said, the first one came out in 2001. Halo CE for the original Xbox. And then the franchise just exploded from there. Halo was so popular, they rushed out Halo 2, which is I'll say this, it's my favorite story, it's my favorite campaign by far. I think Halo 2, in my opinion, is the best Halo campaign, the one that I like the most. This original game, it has a good story, good characters, I like it. But Halo 2, they just develop the lore and the characters and make everything so interesting. Explore the Covenant society. And here we are on, I don't know how you pronounce the name, but it's Chiron, so I'll say Chiron. The map is called Chiron TL-34. And the little actual tagline for this one is Spartan Clone Training Complex. Spartan Clone Training Complex. Like, look at these little lights. Isn't that just, I don't know, stuff like that. These little, like here, it's the same texture. I've got a nice little med kit here. It can restore your health. And they did away with health after this game. It came back in Halo Reach, but I think all the other games you just had your shields. Look at those lights. And this map is, as you can see, just a ton of tiny little rooms with teleporters everywhere. It's just a wild map. You're just running around, jumping through teleporter after teleporter, and there's people camping on the other side with a shotgun, and you're running around, you step through a teleporter, just throw a grenade right away. This is another map that could get kind of crazy and confusing. I mean, they all could. The small ones, all the small ones could get really wild. There's an overshield. Another pretty little overshield. And, where was I? Oh yeah. So they put out Halo 2, and then they put out Halo 3, and Halo Reach. And that was the end of Bungie's work on Halo. Right? I think so. I'm trying to think. I don't think, Bungie didn't make Halo Wars. That was another studio. Anyway, after those Bungie Halo games, Reach was a really good Halo game, by the way, as well. That's a prologue, a prequel to this game, Halo CE. And eventually, 343 Studios or Industries, something like that, I forget the exact name of the development studio, they took over Halo, and they made Halo 4, Halo 5 Guardians, and then Halo Infinite. And that has been kind of a controversial era, I suppose we could say. Although controversial suggests that there's people on both sides of the issue, and I kind of feel like most people are very anti-343's version of Halo. For my part, I do think that the Bungie games are all much better. I thought the 343 games, story-wise, got worse each time. I thought Halo 4 was okay, but not, not great. But it was, it was solid. And then Halo 5 was worse. But I was kind of a Halo 5 defender in a way. Not like a big defender because I thought it was only mediocre, but everybody else, or a lot of my friends thought that it was hot trash. And so I was kind of in the hot take position of being the Halo 5 defender. I thought that there were some interesting things about it, even though it was executed pretty poorly overall. And then Halo Infinite is where I really pulled out my knives, because I thought that game was just, I don't want to be mean in a relaxing video, so I'll just say I didn't care for that game very much. The campaign, I should say. I thought the multiplayer on Halo Infinite was actually quite fun. And so now, we don't really know where Halo is going to go next. I don't know when there's going to be another game. I believe Halo Infinite was supposed to be like a live service campaign sort of thing, like they were going to be continuing the story originally, but I don't know if that's correct. I might be misremembering. But regardless, if that was the case, that was not the case for very long because they never did that. Also, by the way, because this is the Master Chief Collection, I have a bunch of cosmetics that I just have equipped. So, all of the guns and vehicles that I'm using are not their original textures and colors. Like my Scorpion tank is like a tiger print something. My shotgun here you can see is purple, which is not its original color. It's originally, gunmetal gray. So have you started to get a sense of this level's layout? Do you understand how all the portals link together? Can you draw a mental map in your mind? Do it right now, and I will test the accuracy of your mental map and give you a grade. Which portals connect which chambers to which chambers? How many chambers are there? How many portals are there? It's very important that you know all this. And I accidentally threw a grenade there, but we quickly stepped to the portal, and there's no problem. So, yeah, many fond memories of playing this. I will say my most fond memories of Halo multiplayer are Halo 3 custom games and Halo Reach custom games as well. Once they really gave creativity in the hands of game creation to the players with, there were custom games in Halo CE in the sense that you could customize certain settings of the game, but with the release of Forge mode, things really got fun. Players could customize maps and game modes, and they made lots of very fun games. In a sense, it was actually kind of like an early version of what I think like Roblox is now. My understanding of Roblox is that it's not really so much a game as it is a collection of player-created games. And the Halo custom games and Forge mode were kind of an early version of that. Once they gave power to the players to create their own maps and create their own game rules, we got some very creative, fun, custom games. This map is called Timberland, by the way, and its tagline is, "An enemy behind every tree, an enemy behind every tree, an enemy behind every tree." And it's just this large basin full of trees and rocks and hills, and as usual for these Halo maps, 2 little bases on either side. And up here at the little waterfall that feeds this river that rolls through the map, we have an active camouflage. So this is a map that, to be honest, I don't remember playing very much. I don't have so this one. This was remade as Ridgeline in the anniversary edition of this game. And Halo CE, by the way, I think a decade after its release, was remade as Halo CE Anniversary. And it had updated graphics and sound design and a host of tweaks. Well, not even tweaks. I mean, the game looked fundamentally different in its Anniversary edition. They made tons and tons and tons of graphical changes. And I will admit, I wasn't a huge fan of the graphical changes they made. I think in a lot of cases they lost the kind of aesthetic vision of the original. But there were parts that I liked about it as well. So I don't think it was terrible. There were just some bits where I thought, they lost the, there was something compelling about the almost brutalist simplicity of the architecture in the game. And then in the remake, it became so overwhelmingly adorned with ornamentation and carvings and lights and all sorts of stuff that I just thought it went a little over the top. But this is not a video about that because I can't show you those graphics here, so I won't talk about that at the moment. Of course, in Halo you play as Master Chief, John Halo himself, and you have an AI companion named Cortana who accompanies you on your adventures. And their relationship is, a classic gaming dynamic. He's the strong, silent, stoic type, but with a sense of humor that occasionally cracks through, a very dry sense of humor. And she is a more emotive, intelligent, companion, so the two play off of each other nicely. And of course, they're both played brilliantly by Steve Downes. I hope I'm remembering that right. Steve Downes. I think that's Master Chief's voice actor. Steve Downes. And Jen Taylor playing Cortana, who also does an amazing job. So they're kind of fixtures of these games at this point. I mean, even as the games have gone through the hands of numerous other writers, many writers, many developers, changed companies, and so on. Steve Downes and Jen Taylor, in my opinion, have always done phenomenal jobs voice acting the characters, performing the characters, even when, in my opinion, the writing was not great. Those two did very wonderful work. So here we are walking into a red base. This is where the flag would be if you were playing Capture the Flag, for instance. There were a handful of game modes in this. There was Slayer, of course, which was just team deathmatch. There was Capture the Flag. There was King of the Hill. And, of course, you could always change the settings on each of these game modes to introduce some more variety, or your own, personal spin on the game mode. But it's also just that, I don't know, something about don't want to say that this game has bad gameplay, because it doesn't. It's quite fun to handle. It does feel a little dated, and it wouldn't necessarily be my first choice to pick up and play a multiplayer game. But what I want to say is the appeal of this game was just as much with the friends that you played it with as it was with the gameplay. You know, back in the LAN days, it was a thing to do together. I mean, it was a social event. It was a way of hanging out with your friends. And so you'd be goofing off and screaming and yelling at each other and, you know, joking about each other, you know, who's bad at the game, who's good, who's getting blown across the map by a grenade, who's jumping out of a corner and shooting a rocket at their feet to, you know, kill their enemy, but they took themselves out too, and everybody laughs, and yada yada yada. It was a very social thing to do LAN parties. You'd eat food together, you know, eat snacks, and obviously online gaming, you hang out with your friends. I mean, that's a way that I stay in touch with old friends that I don't live near anymore. We can't see each other physically, so we get together online and play a game together and catch up while we play. Man, look at the threshold. That's what I'm talking about. It's so beautiful. But yeah, playing these old multiplayer games in the same room was really something special. There was something that I enjoyed more about that than I do about online gaming now. It was a unique, very fun experience that I do kind of miss. It would be wonderful to recapture that. Be very fun to be able to get, you know, 8, 10, 12 people, whatever, in a big room together, and you're all on your separate TVs, and you're all... I mean, this is also, you know, screen peeking, screen looking, whatever you call it. When you were playing split screen, you could just shift your eyes over and see what your opponent was doing, where they were on the map, what weapon they had, where they were looking, and that could give you tactical advantage. So I don't know, there's something so quaint about it now. But you know, people would say, "Hey, stop screen peeking, stop screen looking." If you kept on getting the back smacks on them or whatever, they'd say, "I know you're looking at my screen," because you were all on the same TV, you know. This is a map that I didn't care for too much. Not one of my favorites. It's called Boarding Action. Ship-to-ship combat. And it is composed of these 5 levels of exterior ship. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just open to the void of space. These little, I mean, they're not docking bays, they're just hallways that are open to the void. So yeah, these little ship hallways on the side of the ship, and there are 2 ships lined up next to each other, and you can go through teleporters to cross from one ship to the other. And of course, pretty much wherever you are on the map, you can be in the sight line of somebody on the other side of the map, because the entire map is just sandwiched together like that. Look at this little alcove. It's a funny little feature. I just perch up here like a little gargoyle. Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. to leave the sounds on in this video if I can. I'll need to, once I get into the editing software, see if I can, if they're disruptive or anything, but if the footsteps are too loud or whatever. But the sound design of these old maps, I don't mean to say sound design was like unique to these old maps or anything, but I just mean the sound design of these maps is very nice. Like on Sidewinder, you get the Arctic wind just blowing through, and it recedes, and it blows strong again, and it recedes, and it blows strong again. Or on Blood Gulch, where you just have the constant chorus of birds chirping. The hum and thrum of alien machinery. It's another thing where when you're just wandering around the map by yourself, you get to pick up on stuff like that a bit more. Look at that, is that a galaxy? Looks like it. You get to pick up on the sound design that you wouldn't really notice when there's 7 screaming dudes in a room shooting each other with assault rifles. So these are, I'll do one more map after this one, and then I think that's about half the maps in the game. So maybe I'll return and do the other half of the maps that I left out. There's a mod for Half-Life 2 that I recently saw. It's called Alone, I think. And it just recently came out, I believe. Or maybe recently reached its final version, I don't know, but it's a mod that takes out all the enemies, like all the creatures, all the NPCs, everybody of Half-Life 2. It's a completely barren world. And then it turns the day to night. It becomes nighttime in all the maps. And you can just walk through the entirety of Half-Life 2 in this dark, empty world. And it's a little more ominous, I would say, than just walking around these empty maps. Becomes a little scary, a little unsettling. Probably because of the time change to night. But it's a very cool idea. I like that one a lot. I like that idea. And I think would give a similar vibe as walking around these old maps, So I'd like to try out that mod. Get a nice cup of tea or something. A little snack late at night. Get cozy and just play through the empty world of Half-Life 2. This is the map Derelict. Its description is Deep Space Anomaly 0198. Speaking of Half-Life 2, another really phenomenal ASMR channel, Knights ASMR, is playing through the Half-Life games, Half-Life 2, and he's working through the episodes at the moment. So, you should go check out his channel. I'll drop a link to him in the description. But if you're a fan of Half-Life like I am, it's a very relaxing way to fall asleep. In this map, got a pretty significant remake. In Halo 2, it became the map Desolation. Desolation, I say pretty significant remake because it's no longer a space station. It's like these old ruins on the planet's, on the ring's surface, but it has the same map structure. You know, looking at space through these windows, it reminds me of one of the most, like, peaceful areas that gives me this kind of general vibe I've been talking about. It's at the very start of this game's campaign, the very first mission. Once you get through the training process, and you go to meet the captain, Captain Keys, you can drop down onto this little observation deck thing. It's made of glass, and you can just look out at the ring, look out at the stars. Maybe I'll take you there in another video. Look at that. Just look at that galaxy. It's so beautiful. I like these little hallway floors with this little grating and the underlit green light. It's kind of cool. So, I think I'll wrap it up here. I hope that you enjoyed walking through these old maps with me. For me, it's certainly very nostalgic. So that's a part of it. If you don't have the nostalgia, it might not hit quite the same way. I don't know. But beyond that, there's just something peaceful to me about wandering empty multiplayer maps, or empty campaign maps too, just taking in these constructed environments that were designed for another purpose, but you're just hanging out in them without that purpose, like playing out, if that makes sense. Just goes to that kind of magic vibe I've been talking about the whole time. But I think I would, I'd like to return to this idea at some point. Maybe it's the other multiplayer maps, or maybe I go through some campaign missions that have been cleared of the enemies to make it nice and peaceful. But yeah, what do you think? Would that be relaxing? Either way, my friends, please take care of yourselves. Stay happy, stay peaceful. Take care of yourself.